So I wasn't sure what I should talk about. Krista suggested I say a few words about climate change. It came up briefly in the remarks. Of course, it's when the storm comes, it doesn't matter if it's climate change or not. So in some way, it's a peripheral topic. But as we think to the future, it's not so peripheral. We can't say with any strong evidence that climate change had an important role in Sandy, except that the sea level's close to a foot higher than it would have been 100 years ago, of which about 7 or 8 inches is due to human influence raising the sea level. The rest is due to the land sinking, which is natural. And so that means that whatever the storm surge is from any given storm, it's starting at a higher sea level. And Sandy's storm surge was about 9 feet here. So it was in New York Harbor. I think it's about the same here, on top of about 5 feet of tide. So that's 1 foot less that has to be to get to the same level of flooding. And as time goes on, by the end of the century, we expect several, as much as several feet more as sea level rise. So that means even much weaker storms will produce the same kind of disasters, including winter storms, by the way. It's not only hurricanes. Nor'easters, really bad nor'easter could produce a Sandy-like event here. So unless something happens to change where people are living or how the coastline's protected, then these are going to become much more frequent events. It's also the current understanding of the scientists in my field that hurricanes will get stronger as the climate warms. Actually have a little article in the New York Times tomorrow about that as it happens. So, but only time that's ever happened. It's a coincidence that we're here tonight. But anyway, that again, it's not clear if we see that yet, but that's coming in the future. So exactly what that means for Long Beach, we can't predict far in the future. We can only predict. The Hurricane Center can tell you in the next week or so what's going to happen. But further than that, we don't have any certainty, except we know that the risk is most likely going up, especially due to sea level rise in places like this. So that's just to say that all this is all the more relevant. Learning how to make these warnings and how to respond to them and how to get people to take the actions they need to take is all that much more important. There's one more point I want to make, which is even more peripheral, but I can't help make it, is that the social science of getting people to respond to storm warnings actually teaches us something about climate change too that's worth understanding. So a couple things I heard in the video. One was that people only can imagine the strongest storm they've been in. That was one comment one of the people made. And there was another one that I can't remember that was something to that effect. And what it says is that people, in order to believe that something's going to happen to them, they have to sort of be able to visualize it. And it's true even if people believe the forecast. If you tell people there's going to be a storm, it's not that they don't believe the weather service, but they can't imagine it's going to be that bad, right? And so people don't take action. And climate change is actually really the same on a long time scale, because the scientists are saying what's happening, and even people who aren't in denial, who believe it, it's kind of low on their list of priorities because it's sort of far away and you can't really imagine it. And yet, so it's worth, those of you who've been through a really bad hurricane and have learned from personal experience that it's a good idea to listen to what the scientists tell you rather than, not respond to it because you've never seen it. I mean, this is human nature, but it's good keeping that in mind when we think about the climate change forecast too, even though the kind of actions we would imagine are much more large scale and communal and not individual decisions about whether to stay or go. But it's a similar kind of thing. So I think when we think about all these problems, there's how human beings respond to scientific predictions of environmental risk is a really important problem. So it's good to see the research being done.